Well, good morning. Welcome to Power Up's Ask a Health or Fitness Expert podcast, where we have a variety of guests that volunteer to share their love of health, fitness, products or services that are, of course, all good for us. A quick disclosure, this podcast will contain our opinions, tips, advice, and suggestions, but they're just ours. So take it or leave it. My honorary guest today is Jake Weeks, and we are here to talk about fructose. Are you ready to get down and dirty with fructose?
I'm pumped.
I know that this topic came up in our last podcast last week. There was mention about having dehydrated fruit. And I was like, oh, and I cringed. And you were like, oh, I hit a button there. For sure, I believe I love dehydrated fruit. Don't get me wrong. Like I love mango, dehydrated mango, apricots. However, part of the reason why I cringe is the fructose issue. The other issue is I have an underactive thyroid. And so when you're talking about a dehydrated fruit, there is a risk of mold spores. And when you have mold spores, it is not good for an underactive thyroid. So that's actually really the reason why I cringed. Also, not to mention high fructose foods, such as dehydrated fruit, which in fact, I actually did a little research. Dehydrated fruit has 27% fructose levels, which exceeds, well, actually it's just under honey. Honey has a 40% fructose content. So, dehydrated fruit, if you look at an apple and you slice it up and dehydrate it, it ends up being a very, very tiny little amount. So consuming just one apple would be really hard to do. So granted, it'll have all the fiber and all the, wonderful vitamins that we need in that dehydrated fruit. The quantity, more often than not, will probably be really bombarding on the liver. So that's kind of, in a nutshell, but I'd love to have a conversation with your take on it, what research you follow, and how you feel about fructose.
That's interesting that you said it only has 27%. How does that compare to like fruit that still has the moisture? And I wonder, for me, first of all, I was comparing it to candy. So for me, it's a huge improvement. And I was recommending it for people who have a sweet tooth that are trying to like find a healthier alternative. Clearly, like fruit with the moisture would be better than dehydrated fruit, in large part because you would have less volume probably on average, because that water would fill you up instead of, like you said, an apple, if it was dehydrated, would be pretty small. I do think that just on net, the best things you can eat like on a regular basis are vegetables followed by seeds, nuts, and fruits in some order, So if I was only going to tell someone to eat 3 or 4 different things, fruits would be on the list.
Yeah.
Now, they do have higher sugar content, so I would definitely choose like vegetables or something without as much sugar as a better single item. But because of like all the micronutrients, the phytochemicals, things that get discounted, I think, when people are so concerned with just basically calories and maybe proteins and carbs, that's why it's so important. You don't want to just be dependent on like multivitamins and having to like piecemeal all your nutrients together when you got things like fruits and vegetables that have so much of everything you need right there. As far as fructose goes, that's interesting. It's something that has to be processed by the liver. It doesn't cause like insulin to spike necessarily because it is processed by the liver. So it's pretty interesting. It can be pretty tough on the liver, from what I understand, especially fruit juice, because there's such a high concentration of fructose. What I also understand is that fructose, when it's still in the fiber form, stays within those cells. And so it gets released in a much slower way. So you don't have that spike of sugar into the blood as the liver's releasing it. So on average, a whole fruit with the fiber is pretty dang good for you. Fruit juice, on the other hand, cannot be very good for you at all. In fact, I think it can be pretty detrimental, and I wouldn't recommend to anybody that they drink fruit juice, honestly. unless they're just using it as a transition to switch from alcohol or soda to something healthier, and then ultimately off to water or something, or black coffee if they're doing it for energies reasons or something. But so much better would be to just eat that piece of fruit, just so you don't have the spike in insulin and you get all those extra nutrients that come from the fiber itself. I think I should eat more fruit that's whole and in its natural state with the moisture. But for me, I think eating the dried fruit is actually a significant improvement over what I was eating before. And at least I'm getting some of those fruit nutrients, because I don't really eat a lot of moist fruit regularly. Do you? I mean, do you eat?
Actually, I made several trips to Green Bluff this summer, or actually later in the summer. And my choice would be berries, hands down, because berries have the highest amount of micronutrients and fiber, and keeping that sugar level lower. So that would be my choice, hands down, is in the natural form, actually picking it at, farms that are local, so if possible, or in the wild. But be careful not to get the poisonous ones. I do know that anybody that's looking to lose weight probably should have fruit in their diet, but it needs to be lower. And I would definitely say berries, stick to berries and berries only. Anybody that has high cholesterol, I would avoid fructose because it actually does raise your cholesterol levels. Anyone with high blood pressure, I would also encourage them to be cautious about fructose because it does increase your uric acid, which then increases your blood pressure. It does have some scientific, now it's controversial, but some of them are saying that it does have create insulin resistance if there's a lot of fructose in your diet. And it also, fructose does not suppress your appetite as much as a glucose, so it could promote eating more. And I found what was interesting is fruit juice is 7.4% fructose. Soda is 5.8. Dried fruit is 27%, and actual fruit is 6.4%. So I wonder if that's on weight or.
I wonder if it is, because I was reading something like that too, but I didn't understand how taking moisture out would add more sugar. It must just be by a weight thing.
It has to be. Apple pie is 4.6%.
That's interesting.
And
then I know a lot of the dried fruits add sugars, but yeah, go ahead. A Whopper, please tell.
Whopper is 1.7%. Sauces is 2.3%. Salad dressing is 12.5%. So
especially now, because a lot of them are high fructose corn syrup. If you look at most salad dressing labels, that's the first ingredient on there. And since we're talking about high fructose corn syrup, like corn syrup isn't necessarily bad. Fructose isn't necessarily bad. Like they just add fructose to the corn syrup to make it extra fructosey. None of these things are inherently bad in and of themselves. It's just the quantity we eat them in and the frequency and the fact that our bodies are constantly firing off insulin or producing the hormone insulin to get all that sugars and byproducts out of our systems, and which develops insulin resistance. And just listening to what Catherine's talking about, that's really interesting about all the different things that have fructose in it.
Mm-hmm.
Why we add it to so many things just as a little sweetener, when it's having these negative health effects.
Yeah, when people eat a diet that's high in calories and high in fructose, the liver gets overloaded and starts turning the fructose into fat.
And I was just talking to Catherine before we came on about a friend of mine who just developed some liver and pancreatic issues, and he drank alcohol with orange juice was his main drink, and I just wonder if the combination of those two really contributed to that. It's pretty interesting stuff. My sister drinks a lot of fruit juice. The rest of my family does. I've been really trying to teach them about this stuff. I didn't even know until about a year ago when I was drinking a bunch of fruit juice, thinking it was an easy way for me to get all my micronutrients. And I didn't feel good. Like I could feel my energy levels fluctuating more than I was used to. So I did some research, and it really took me down this rabbit hole of the insulin resistance and these things that are sort of nebulous terms, become really apparent in how they all work together, and how diabetes and insulin resistance and the sugars and fats too are all related and cause what is the foundation for so many health problems in America. Go ahead.
Yeah, there's whenever you hear that somebody has fatty liver, it's automatic reaction to think, oh, they drink a lot. But the reality is more often than not, it's the overconsumption of fructose and a diet that's, poor and high in fats.
And
So
it's not just fruit or fruit juice. It's the high fructose corn syrup is in the salad dressings, the ketchups, and most of the sauces, most of the condiments. You know, they're coming back around and they're realizing people don't want that. And now they'll advertise as natural, and you can now pick up a ketchup bottle that might actually say tomato something first. But for a while there, for years, literally, you'd have to scour the shelves to find something that didn't. And a salad dressing too, same thing. It's pretty crazy. We do consume a lot of fructose, more than we know.
yeah, yeah. And you had pointed it out, you know, being really in tune with your body and listening to your body and knowing what it feels like when you have these spikes and drops in your blood sugar. It's so important to know what causes that. And everybody's body's different, but you know, blood sugar imbalances have been described as adding fuel to the fire for autoimmune and thyroid disease. So that's why it's really important to me and I also know for my own body, if I keep my blood sugars really consistent throughout the day, it keeps me in the fat burning zone or anabolic. So I know that my body is not adding on body fat. I'm keeping a lean body mass. I feel good. I have more energy throughout the day. Really understanding how your body works and what foods are good for it. And you're right, you nailed it. Having more vegetables, having more fiber, having protein, you know, quality foods in your diet is really, really important. And berries, I eat berries every single day. Like I said, I went up there and every trip to Green Bluff, I would have gallons of blueberries. So yeah, it's really good for us to have a variety of foods in our diet and really understanding everything that, you know, we put in our body really needs to be thought of as fuel. You know, I'm a foodie. I love great food, high quality food, and enjoy, you know, having a nice meal out, but I rarely eat out. I love being at home and cooking and preparing my own foods and knowing exactly what all is going into it. Because you're right, you go to a lot of restaurants and they add salts and sugar and a bunch of, you know, vegetable oils and this and that, you know, to make that food taste good. But it's actually, it's a chemical reaction in your brain that says, oh, this is really good and I want more, and you end up eating way too much. So then your portions are way off. But there's just a lot that goes into, you know, understanding our body and food, and knowing now we can sit on the couch and grab our phone and order up Uber Eats and have 3,000 calories delivered to our door in a matter of minutes, where really our bodies are designed to walk 5, 10, 20 miles and forage for food. And we're not doing that. You know, we're maybe getting 500 to 1,000 steps a day. And it's really not good with that $3,000 in one meal, or 3,000 calories in one meal. We really need to understand our health and really embrace the fact that we want to live a long, healthy life. And doing so is taking care of our body and getting educated. I posted in Facebook this week about, you know, what is your personal perspective on obesity in the US? What's causing it? And I was shocked. Most people blamed food. And, you know, to a certain extent it is, but really it's a personal choice. It's really landing on the fact that, one, get educated, learn how your body functions, go to the doctor, get blood work done, find out about your hormones, find out about, is my body functioning optimally? If not, get those things resolved, fix those things, and then learning what foods really work with your body. Do you have food intolerances? Well, great, then avoid those foods, right? I know they might be the yummiest foods, you know, like for me, I do have a lactose intolerance, so I have to stay away from dairy. Now, do I stay away from it totally? No. But I know when I consume dairy, my body reacts. Like I can feel it. My skin reacts. I get a breakout, all these different things. But I know I have choices every single day to eat right, and I'm informed. my head's not in the sand. I know how my body reacts, functions. I listen to it. I'm intuitive, just like you were saying. You know, you're like, oh, I feel my blood sugar's off, you know? And then what have I consumed? What have I done to create that? So I love that we're having this conversation, and we're in alignment on it as well. It's great.
I want to piggyback off a couple of things that you said there. They really have been linking this insulin resistance to so many things, including I saw something where they're linking it to cancer and inflammation. And they've been really trying to figure out, like, ways to explain all the different health issues that might arise in the most simplest ways possible, and try to like synthesize all these different things that cause all these problems. And one of the things they talk about over and over is insulin resistance. And you have to stop drinking fruit juice, drinking sugars. You have to start thinking about your insulin levels if you want to have a long and healthy life. I really think it's important for everyone, not just diabetics, to focus on insulin, everybody. Yeah. And the things that cause insulin to spike, especially, are high glycemic foods, sugars, and fructose. Again, fruit does not have that same effect. Fruit is good for you. You can overeat fruit, especially dried fruit, but it's really tough to do. Yeah. You can certainly overdrink fruit juice. Like any amount over 0 for most people is too much. Yeah. Seriously. These are the little things that you can do to really change your life and your chance of living a long and healthy life. I would just start there. If you're wondering about your fruit consumption, cut out the fruit juice, eat more fruit, unless for some reason you're really gorging too much. And that'll probably help you a lot. And as Catherine was saying, the other thing I want to piggyback off is, it's not fruit's fault. It's not food's fault. It's not your thyroid's fault or your hormones' fault. Ultimately, it's your choices. Your choices determine how healthy you will be. You might have a little bit tougher time than others based on your history or your genetics, but if you eat well and if you exercise, you can and will get in shape.
Right. Yeah. With my blood work and what I know about my body and my genetics, is I'm predisposed for diabetes, but I don't have it. I control my blood sugars. I understand them very well. I understand how my body functions and what it needs to avoid being a type 2 diabetic. I also am predisposed for underactive thyroid. I am on a mild natural form thyroid medication, but it's really, really mild and really don't see much effect. But I also have predisposed for Alzheimer's, and I could live out my entire life as long as I maintain a healthy lifestyle and eating the right foods, eating fish every week, and the right supplements, and engaging my brain and keep going and keep that brain really fine-tuned. I can avoid all the actual symptoms from showing up. But I do believe that we need to, get informed, really start going to the doctor twice a year at least, because a lot of things transpire in our bodies and we don't even feel it. Like, things will creep up, fatty liver or all these different things. I even known somebody that was in renal failure and had no idea until, basically they were facing death. So a lot of these things can be breaking down in our body and we're just ignoring it, having that drink every night or eating that crappy food or not working out and not realizing that our organs are just trashed on the inside. Yeah. So I even know people that look healthy. They appear to be healthy, but they actually go to the doctor finally and they realize that they have some major medical stuff going on. So I just really think it's important to be informed.
Yeah. And as my friend who was diagnosed recently, inspires me to just take care of yourself, make those decisions on a daily basis that will help you have a longer, healthier life where you get the chance to play with your grandkids and have the energy and the mobility and try to be self-disciplined. Don't give in to just what's best for your present self having fun. Think about your future self and what that person would want too. For God's sake, don't drink any more fruit juice. Okay. And if you're drinking alcohol, don't make it your main drink. Instead of vodka OJ, let's switch to vodka soda or something. Seriously.
Something, yeah. But
little baby steps.
Baby steps, and I believe that physical activity is really important, and that's where you specialize. And so how would somebody get in touch with you to start some sort of physical regimen? How do they get a hold of you?
fitandhappyclub.com. Get my phone number, call me, 2 free sessions. I do specialize in the physical aspect, but I can definitely help you with the dietary aspect and any kind of psychological barriers that might be, keeping you from being as self-disciplined as you want, something we all struggle with.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I know that I've done some really deep diving this past couple of years and realized that some of those things from my childhood are, really pop up with all kinds of things in my life. And I'm like, wow, that's really, really bizarre. But if you can identify that and find ways to move through it, and, you can do anything, you can excel at anything in this world. Mm-hmm. So, well, great. This has been a fun conversation, Jake. Until next time.
Thanks, Catherine.
Yeah, absolutely. Stay healthy.
Yeah, you too.
All right. Bye.
Bye.